I want to begin with a simple truth that changed my entire life. Most people believe that wealth is something reserved for the lucky, the connected, or the extraordinarily talented. But after studying success for more than 50 years, working with thousands of entrepreneurs, business owners, and self-made millionaires, I discovered something that shocked me. Wealth is not created by luck. Wealth is created by patterns. And the reason most people struggle financially is not because they lack intelligence, opportunity, or even motivation. It's because they are trapped inside patterns of thinking and behavior that quietly hold them back year after year. The moment you break those patterns, everything begins to change. Your income changes, your opportunities change, your confidence changes, and eventually your entire life changes. Let me ask you something very honestly. Have you ever felt like you're working hard, doing your best, trying to improve your life, but somehow you keep ending up in the same financial situation? If that sounds familiar, I want you to pause for a moment and answer this question in the comments below. What is one habit or pattern you feel is holding you back from financial success? Write it down. When you put it into words, you take the first step toward breaking it, because awareness is always the beginning of transformation. Over the years, I learned a principle that became one of the most powerful ideas in personal development and wealth creation. Your outer world is always a reflection of your inner world. Your bank account, your career, your business success, and your financial stability are almost always the result of how you think, what you believe, and the habits you repeat every single day. In other words, your patterns determine your future. If you repeat the same financial behaviors, you will repeat the same financial results. And this is why two people can start in the same place, with the same education and the same opportunities, yet 10 years later, one becomes financially free while the other is still struggling to pay bills. The difference is not luck. The difference is patterns. I remember early in my career when I was completely broke. I had no university education. I worked labor jobs. I struggled just to get by. And there were many times when I thought maybe success simply wasn't meant for me. But then something happened that changed the direction of my life forever. I began studying successful people, not casually, intensely. I read hundreds of books. I listened to recordings. I attended seminars. I asked successful people questions. I observed their habits, their decisions, their thinking. And what I discovered was astonishing. Successful people were not necessarily smarter than everyone else. They simply had better patterns. They had patterns of discipline, patterns of learning, patterns of goal setting, patterns of taking action even when they were afraid. And the more I adopted those patterns in my own life, the more my results began to change. Your life improves the moment you replace a negative pattern with a positive one. Think about this. If someone wakes up every morning and immediately checks social media, wastes time, complains about life, avoids responsibility, and delays important work, that pattern quietly destroys their future. Not overnight, but slowly, day after day, year after year. But if someone else wakes up early, studies, plans their day, focuses on valuable skills, and takes consistent action toward financial goals, that pattern builds wealth almost automatically. Success is rarely about one big decision. It's about small patterns repeated thousands of times. Now here is something most people never realize. Your brain loves patterns. Your brain is designed to automate behavior so that you don't have to think about every action you take. This is why habits become so powerful. Once a pattern becomes automatic, it runs in the background of your life like a program. And if that program is negative, it quietly sabotages your success. For example, many people have a hidden pattern around money that says, I'll start saving later. I'm not good with money. Rich people are lucky. I just need to survive this month. Those thoughts may seem harmless, but they create a financial identity that limits your behavior. And your behavior determines your results. Self-made millionaires think differently. They do not wait for the perfect moment. They do not blame circumstances. They adopt a pattern of responsibility. One of the most powerful patterns I ever learned was this. Take 100% responsibility for your financial life. When you do this, something extraordinary happens. Your mind stops looking for excuses and starts looking for solutions. You stop saying, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, what can I do to change this? That single shift in thinking is the starting point of wealth creation. Every wealthy person I have, ever met had this pattern deeply installed in their mindset. They believed their future was in their hands. And because they believed that, they acted differently. They learned faster. They worked harder. They took more calculated risks. They invested in themselves. Another pattern that separates financially successful people from everyone else is long-term thinking. Most people live financially from month to month. They think about bills. They think about expenses. They think about surviving the next few weeks. But wealthy individuals think differently. They think in years. They ask themselves powerful questions like, what skills will make me more valuable 5 years from now? What investments will grow over the next decade? What habits today will create freedom later? When you begin thinking long-term, your daily decisions start to change. You become more disciplined with money. You become more serious about learning. You become more intentional with your time. And over time, these decisions compound. Compounding is one of the greatest forces in wealth creation. A small improvement in thinking, repeated daily, becomes a massive advantage over years. A small saving habit, repeated monthly, becomes a large investment portfolio over time. A small learning habit, repeated every day, becomes expertise that the market rewards. But negative patterns compound too. Procrastination compounds. Overspending compounds. Avoiding responsibility compounds. And this is why breaking destructive patterns is one of the most important things you will ever do in your financial life. The good news is that patterns are not permanent. They are learned. And anything learned can be unlearned and replaced. I often tell people that your mind is like a garden. If you plant intentional seeds, you grow success. If you neglect the garden, weeds grow automatically. Negative patterns are simply weeds that were never removed. And wealth building begins the moment you start planting better seeds. Here's a powerful exercise I want you to think about. Imagine that 5 years from now, your financial life is extraordinary. You have savings. You have investments. You have freedom. You have confidence about money. Now ask yourself a simple question. What kind of person would I need to become for that future to be inevitable? Because wealth is not just about money. It's about identity. You must become the kind of person who creates wealth naturally through their habits and decisions. And that transformation always begins with one courageous step. The willingness to break the old patterns that are holding you back. In the next part, I'm going to share some of the most dangerous patterns that silently keep people stuck financially, and more importantly, the exact mental shifts that allow you to break them and start building real, lasting wealth. But before we continue, I want you to do something important. Take a moment right now and write this in the comments. I am ready to break the patterns that are holding me back. When you declare a new direction publicly, your mind begins to accept a new identity. And remember this, your future wealth is not determined by where you start. It is determined by the patterns you choose to build starting today. And once those patterns change, everything else begins to follow. The moment you decide to break a limiting pattern, you begin to take control of your financial destiny. But here is something I want you to understand very clearly. Most people never break their patterns because they don't even realize those patterns exist. They think their financial struggles are caused by the economy, their job, their boss, or bad luck. But in my experience, after decades of studying wealth creation, the real barriers are almost always internal. They are patterns of thinking that quietly control decisions every single day. One of the most destructive patterns I have ever seen is the pattern of waiting. Waiting for the perfect time, waiting for more confidence, waiting for a better opportunity, waiting until things feel easier. But here is the truth I learned from self-made millionaires. The perfect time never arrives. If you look closely at the people who build wealth, you will see something fascinating. They act before they feel ready. They take intelligent risks before everything is guaranteed. They move forward while other people are still analyzing, hesitating, and delaying. Action creates clarity. Waiting creates doubt. Every time you delay an important financial decision, whether it's starting a business, learning a new skill, investing, or improving your career, you reinforce a pattern of hesitation. And hesitation is expensive. Years pass quickly. Opportunities move to someone else. And eventually people look back and wonder where the time went. Breaking this pattern requires a simple but powerful rule that I adopted early in my life. When you see a valuable opportunity, move quickly. Study it. Evaluate it. But do not sit still for months or years. Speed of action is one of the hidden advantages of wealthy individuals. They make decisions faster because they understand that time is the most valuable resource they have. Another pattern that quietly keeps people stuck is what I call the comfort pattern. Human beings naturally move toward comfort and away from discomfort. That instinct kept our ancestors alive. But in the modern world, that same instinct often keeps people trapped in average lives. Comfort tells you to stay where you are. Comfort tells you not to take risks. Comfort tells you to avoid difficult challenges. But growth never happens inside the comfort zone. Every meaningful financial breakthrough requires some level of discomfort. Learning a new skill can feel uncomfortable. Starting a business can feel uncertain. Investing money can feel intimidating. But on the other side of that discomfort is progress. The individuals who create wealth train themselves, become comfortable with temporary discomfort. They understand that short-term challenge creates long-term freedom. Think about this for a moment. A person who avoids discomfort may feel safe today, but 5 years later their life may look exactly the same. Meanwhile, the person who embraces discomfort, who studies at night, who practices new skills, who pushes beyond their limits, gradually builds a completely different future. The third pattern that holds many people back financially is the pattern of low expectations. If you expect very little from life, you will unconsciously accept very little. Your expectations act like invisible boundaries around your potential. I have met people who were incredibly intelligent and hardworking, yet they limited their own income simply because they believed they were not capable of more. They believed higher success belonged to someone else. The moment you raise your expectations, something powerful begins to happen. Your mind starts searching for opportunities that match those expectations. You begin asking better questions. You begin learning faster. You begin surrounding yourself with people who operate at a higher level, and gradually your results begin to rise to meet the new standard you have set. One of the most powerful exercises I ever practiced was this. I started asking myself a single question every day. How can I increase my value? Income in almost every industry is a reflection of value. If you increase your ability to solve problems, create results, lead people, communicate clearly, and deliver excellence, your income potential expands dramatically. But this requires another pattern that successful people adopt early in life, the pattern of continuous learning. When I began my career, I made a decision that changed everything. I decided that I would treat learning as a lifelong responsibility. I read every day. I listened to educational recordings while driving. I attended seminars whenever possible. And Cal. Slowly, year by year, my skills began to compound. Knowledge compounds exactly like money. A new idea can double your effectiveness. A new strategy can multiply your income. A new skill can open doors you never imagined. And the most successful people in every field understand this deeply. They never stop learning. They never assume they know enough. They are constantly upgrading their knowledge, their strategies, and their thinking. Now here is something important. Breaking patterns does not happen all at once. It happens through consistent awareness. You begin noticing the moments when an old habit appears. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's fear of rejection. Maybe it's the impulse to avoid responsibility. Instead of obeying that impulse, you pause and you choose a different action. This moment, this small decision is where transformation begins. Each time you choose a better action, you weaken the old pattern. Each time you repeat the new behavior, you strengthen a new one. How? Eventually the new pattern becomes automatic. And when powerful patterns become automatic, success becomes far easier. Another critical pattern that wealthy individuals adopt is the habit of clear goal setting. Most people drift financially because they never define exactly what they want. They say things like, I want more money, or I want to be successful. But those ideas are vague. The brain cannot organize action around vague goals. Clarity creates power. When you write down specific financial goals, how much you want to earn, how much you want to save, what investments you want to build, your mind begins working on those objectives day and night. You start recognizing opportunities that align with your goals. You start making better financial decisions. You begin measuring progress. And that measurement creates motivation. Goals transform random effort into focused progress. One of the patterns I learned from top performers is that they review their goals constantly, daily, weekly, monthly. This constant review keeps their mind aligned with their future instead of being distracted by temporary problems. Remember this, the patterns you repeat daily determine the life you experience years from now. A few disciplined habits repeated every day can transform your financial life. Reading for 30 minutes, saving a percentage of your income, practicing a valuable skill, planning tomorrow before going to sleep. These small patterns may appear insignificant in the moment, but over time, they produce extraordinary results. And that is one of the greatest secrets of wealth creation. Success is not explosive. Success is cumulative. It builds quietly day after day through patterns that most people overlook. Now let me share something that I consider one of the greatest discoveries in the study of wealth and personal success. Your life changes when your daily patterns change, not when you wish for something different, not when you complain about your circumstances, not when you wait for the economy or the world to improve. Your life changes when your daily behaviors become aligned with wealth creation. After decades of studying self-made millionaires, entrepreneurs, and high achievers, I discovered that the people who build lasting financial success all develop a small number of powerful patterns that guide their actions every single day. And once those patterns become automatic, success becomes predictable. The first wealth-building pattern is what I call absolute clarity of purpose. Wealthy individuals are extremely clear about what they want. They don't drift through life hoping things will work out. They decide exactly what kind of financial future they want to build. They know the income they want to earn. They know the lifestyle they want to create. They know the level of financial security they are working toward. Clarity creates focus, and focus multiplies productivity. When your goals are clear, your brain begins filtering information differently. You start noticing opportunities that you would have ignored before. Conversations become more meaningful. Decisions become easier. Instead of reacting to life, you begin directing it. Here is a simple exercise that can completely change your financial direction. Take a piece of paper and write down the answer to this question. What would my financial life look like 5 years from now if everything went perfectly? Write it in detail. Your income, your savings, your investments, your lifestyle. When you write your future clearly, your mind begins organizing your behavior to move toward it. The second pattern of wealthy individuals is relentless personal responsibility. Every successful person I've ever met has developed the habit of owning their results. If something goes wrong, they do not waste energy blaming others. They ask one powerful question: what can I learn from this? That question transforms failure into feedback, and feedback accelerates growth. People who blame circumstances remain stuck because they believe the problem is outside their control. People who accept responsibility grow stronger because they believe improvement is always possible. The third wealth pattern is extreme discipline with time. Time is the ultimate wealth asset. Money lost can be earned again, but time once spent is gone forever. Successful individuals treat time with enormous respect. They plan their days carefully. They focus on high-value activities. They avoid distractions that steal their future. In my own life, one of the most powerful habits I ever developed was planning the next day before going to sleep. Just a few minutes of planning creates incredible clarity. When you wake up knowing exactly what must be done, you eliminate hesitation and begin the day with purpose. Over the course of a year, this simple pattern can add hundreds of productive hours to your life. Another wealth-building pattern is continuous improvement. The world rewards those who become more valuable, and value is created through skills. If you look at the highest paid people in any field, you will find something interesting. They are almost always the individuals who develop rare and valuable skills. They communicate better. They solve bigger problems. They lead people effectively. They deliver results consistently. Your income will almost always rise to the level of the value you create. That means the fastest path to wealth is often the path of skill development. Ask yourself regularly, what is the most valuable skill I could develop right now? Then dedicate time every day to practicing it. Over time, that skill becomes your competitive advantage. And advantage leads to opportunity. Another powerful pattern of wealthy individuals is delayed gratification. This may be one of the most important wealth principles you will ever understand. Delayed gratification simply means choosing a greater reward in the future instead of immediate pleasure today. Many people spend money as soon as they earn it. They upgrade their lifestyle quickly. They buy things to impress people who are not paying their bills. But wealthy individuals often do the opposite. They invest first. They save consistently. They allow their money to grow and compound over time. Compounding is extraordinary. Money invested wisely can grow exponentially across years and decades. And the earlier you begin, the more powerful that growth becomes. This is why the pattern of saving and investing regularly is one of the foundations of financial independence. Even small amounts invested consistently can create remarkable results over time. Another pattern I noticed among financially successful people is intentional association. The people you spend time with influence your thinking more than you may realize. If you surround yourself with individuals who constantly complain, avoid responsibility, and dismiss ambition, it becomes difficult to think differently. But when you spend time around people who are building businesses, learning constantly, and pursuing meaningful goals, something powerful happens. Your standards rise. Your conversations improve. Your mindset expands. Human beings naturally adapt to their environment. So choose your environment carefully. Seek out people who inspire growth. Read books written by successful thinkers. Listen to ideas that challenge your limits. Every influence you allow into your mind shapes your future patterns. And finally, one of the most powerful wealth patterns I have ever seen is consistent action. Ideas alone do not create wealth. Motivation alone does not create wealth. Execution creates wealth. Successful individuals move forward even when progress feels slow. They continue improving even when results take time. They stay focused when others lose patience, because they understand something most people forget. Great achievements are built through persistence. A business grows gradually. Skills develop gradually. Investments compound gradually. But over time, those gradual improvements create extraordinary outcomes. Let me leave you with one final thought. You do not need to change everything in your life overnight. You only need to change one pattern at a time. Choose one habit that moves you closer to financial success. Practice it daily. Protect it. Strengthen it. Once that pattern becomes natural, add another, then another. Over time, these small improvements transform your identity. And when your identity changes, your results follow. The person who once struggled with money becomes the person who manages it wisely. The person who once doubted their potential becomes the person who creates opportunities. The person who once lived paycheck to paycheck becomes the person building lasting wealth. And it all begins with a single decision. The decision to break the patterns that have been holding you back. So I want to ask you one more question. What new pattern are you ready to start today? Write it in the comments. Declare it. Because the moment you decide to change your patterns, you begin building a completely different future. And remember this, wealth is not reserved for a special few. It is created by individuals who choose better habits, better thinking, and better actions consistently, patiently, and deliberately. Your future wealth begins the moment your patterns change.